Nice and skinny soon. Have you hit record? Oh, fucking hell. I don't even feel like saying that right now. Nah.
2 days into your fast and you're already...
No,
that's it. We're not talking about it.
The worst bit of it.
No, we know. You've already said that on the Patreon episode.
It's the worst bit of
If you want to hear Chris moaning about fasting, then sign up to Patreon. Pay money to listen to him moaning about it. We've just recorded top 5 reasons to stay up all night, which will be out probably this week. So if you guys are wondering what Patreon is, go and have a look, because me and him put an episode up each week over there.
Yes.
Bonus one, and you can help support the podcast by signing up for that. From as little as about 79p a month, you can become a Patreon. And yeah, we put up little posts and you get free tickets to live shows.
I've got another no caller ID here. Shall we go for it?
I mean, for people that are listening have no idea about the previous ones. So
I had a cold call for glazing earlier, so I'm just going to... hello?
Hello, is that Mr. Glassons?
Yeah, speaking. Mr. Glassons here.
How are you today? Okay.
I'm spiffing. How can I help, buddy?
You're spiffing. I'll give you a second. It's just Daniel from Zenith. I understand you've already been speaking to one of my colleagues just regarding funding that's available to everybody in your area.
Oh,
now,
right, yeah.
Yeah, now we're not on about now, Mr. Glassons, but
Yeah.
in the future, understand, was it the windows that could be a possibility in the future with the help of the funding?
Yeah, I think I spoke to... I think it was Adam, wasn't it? I said I had some between 30 and 35 windows.
30 and 35 windows.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. And if you was to replace them in the future, what would be the main reason for doing so if you was to replace your 35 windows?
They're just filthy, mate.
They're just what, sorry?
They're just dirty.
They're just dirty?
Yeah.
Right, what about your doors? Are they dirty too?
No, the doors are clean, but I just don't keep up with glassware.
Right, well, the way the scheme works...
My back doors are filthy, but the rest of them
His
is...
back doors... His back doors are filthy.
Hello.
Hello?
Hiya. So your back doors are filthy?
Yeah, yep.
You've not had them smashed in, though?
Not yet. No, it's a safe neighbourhood. It's a safe neighbourhood. No, it's
It's quite a safe neighbourhood.
it's off.
isn't it?
If anything, it's always consensual around here. But yeah.
Right. Okay. So is there any other windows or doors that you're looking to possibly replace there? Sir?
I've got about 30 to 35, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll just put you back onto Daniel, sir. 'cause
Okay,
He's the guy, and obviously if you do anything happens to your back doors and you want anything sorted, he's the one that'll be able to sort that out for you as well.
He'll come round and sort out my back doors for me, will he?
He would willingly do that, Mr. Glasson.
Okay, that's
yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, mate, you alright?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks. How are
You
you?
know what she's saying. Right, I'll leave you to it. I take it you don't want anyone.
We really don't, mate. It's I don't own a house. I'm basically homeless. But you guys have a great Saturday.
Right, no, it's nice
See you later, mate. Bye.
Take care, mate.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Oh, when you said your back doors are filthy, I wanted to get it out, but I couldn't. I had to give myself a second. Oh, so there you go, guys.
There's an intro to a podcast for you.
Check that one out. So if you want to hear the start of that, it is released on Patreon, the first call. They called me, but I was in a much more grumpy mood, wasn't I, for the first one?
They were great.
They were great, weren't they?
I love the fact that he was obviously laughing so much he had to put his mate on. I hope that's used for training purposes.
Oh man, that's great.
Oh dear.
Dear.
All good?
Yeah, brilliant. So, Jesus Christ, what we doing? That's cheered me up.
Yeah, and me.
Top 5 scariest moments. This was on Instagram, was it? Do you know who picked it? Was it Instagram or you said Patreon?
That was chosen by... Oh, God. Oh, dear.
Make a name up. It's on Acast,
no.
so the crew won't know. So it is top 5 scariest moments.
Nina Blackwell.
Nina, thank you so much for this, my darling. I hope you don't mind our little digression just a minute ago. And if you do need any double glazing, Zenith. It's Zenith, wasn't it?
Yeah, today's episode is brought to you by Zenith Windows.
Zenith Windows, thank you, Zenith Windows.
If you've just got filthy windows, or you need any remedial works carried out on your back doors,
there
Zenith
you
Windows.
guys. Yeah, there you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so top 5 scariest moments.
Any criteria to this?
It's weird. The only thing I thought of, it is scary when you're gonna mug. I'm gonna get mugged right off here. Fear.
Yeah.
Things you fear, moments you fear,
Yeah.
or moments that were just, oh fuck, that was scary.
Yeah.
You know. So I've gone more scary.
Yeah.
But I've slipped in a little bit of fear too. So I've just taken up a minute saying, not really.
I mean, what we should say as well is, whilst we're talking about legitimate scary things, if I can just get a bit serious for a moment, we're currently seeing the inquest into the bridge attacks.
Sure.
He's on at the moment with our previous guest. Obviously, was massively involved in that, which is Leon McLeod.
Yep.
If you want to hear legitimate scary stuff, then go and listen to Leon's episode, because it was been one of the standout episodes this year. There's not that we avidly check our stats for listens, but that's head and shoulders above anything we've done this year.
Yeah.
And so I would say that, and also the after effects of really scary things. And I'm not just talking about me and you talking about seeing each other's knobs and things like that. I'm talking about legitimate things that create lasting fear and anxiety and depression. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. And we had Gary Hayes record an episode talking about his charity PTSD 999, and he talks about the horror of being involved in the station bombings, and the effect that has taken on him and so many of his colleagues. And from that episode, that reached out to Leon McLeod. Leon's since run the London Marathon for PTSD 999. Leon's absolute great lad. He was at We Are Lizards at the weekend with Charlie, who was another one of the police officers involved in them attacks. And so, yeah, it's I know we're going to make light of fear and that, I would have thought, in this episode. But if you want to hear something with a little bit more depth, I mean, Gary's episode is very, very serious, isn't it? And it's unbelievable. It's such an interesting insight into something that a lot of people don't really know about PTSD 999 and PTSD. Sorry, and the fact that a lot of people presume it's just the armed forces, and obviously PTSD 999 is more about the emergency services, and then you start to understand why PTSD can affect anyone, and it's a really interesting one. Leon's one is quite a strange one in regards to, we're talking about some of the effects that he's encountered from his experiences, whilst chopping it up with top 5 American office moments.
And that's very much like the tone of our podcast is the really serious things followed up by saying something,
and I just thought, before we go in on talking about scary things that are probably going to be ridiculous for the best part, we should also say that there's some stuff with actual content in our back catalogue, and I would definitely suggest that them 2 episodes are something to go and listen to.
Yeah, definitely. I would. And we've got some others. We're about to book another person with a quite tragic story, really, who's doing something really quite special as well. And hopefully we can get that booked in very soon. But I'm not going to say much more on that. Shall I just do my number 5?
And we've got Stuart Roberts coming up soon. Stuart Roberts is the guy that set up Haircuts for the Homeless, and his story is incredible. You may have heard him on Distraction Pieces, but that's something to hear his story. So he's coming up soon. And if you want something that does go a little bit deeper as well, the Darren Garwood episode in our back catalogue is again one of them ones that's split between lots of hilarious stories, but it's the theme behind it is something far more serious, and so there is some actual content in our back catalogue that is them occasional ones where me and Chris literally just sit here
speechless.
Gary
Mansell.
Gary Mansfield, fucking hell, of course.
Got banged up for fucking ever for drugs-related things that he got stitched up for.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, it's an amazing story.
Yeah. So there's
Tragic, but something beautiful came out of that.
something incredible's come out of that, and he's become a good pal.
Yeah, good pal, great artist as well.
Yeah, and he's got a podcast, Mizog Art. So yeah, I like this intro. We've started with a crank call, and then we've actually just, which we often say is when we do the intro, we should mention stuff in our back catalogue because we've got enough episodes now. And so yeah, I think that's probably the weirdest intro I've ever done. Like, took a phone call from a window salesman, and then just gone straight in with the serious stuff. And now I'm sure we're going to go back to the ridiculous.
Number 5, the time I thought I caught AIDS. It was quite terrifying, that, and I wasn't going to have that as my number 5, but it's just it's too funny to not say that one.
When did you get the AIDS?
I thought I got, it was the Craig story at Turnmills,
Right.
that one where he ends up having sex in the club and then at the side of the hotel, and then he
That
wakes.
wasn't the bin bags, was it?
That was a totally other
Yeah.
the creepy time, and
That Craig, what's he like?
he's fucking awful, mate. I don't talk to him now.
Don't you?
Just don't talk to him.
Did he go? Was he out in Ibiza?
He wasn't really. No,
Yeah.
no, he weren't. I didn't see him
Yeah.
out there. So
No.
thank God for Ibiza. Yeah. So crazy night of carelessness and recklessness, and a reason to never have unprotected sex.
Yeah.
You know, and many people will have found themselves in that boat, try as they might, and then knowing that it was quite a ridiculous night. Craig was absolutely convinced that he'd caught AIDS that night, and I remember for weeks, because you go and get your blood test, but you don't know. And
You actually went and got tested?
of course, yeah. And for weeks you're just in that period of self-reflection, and it's bloody horrible, that. And no one, you should be a lot more careful. And thinking that you have it is ridiculous. And I had no no indication that I did. It was just my behaviour that night was so disgraceful that I was absolutely terrified. So there you go. Bag up, folks. That's the real moral of today's episode, isn't it? What do you reckon?
Bag up, folks.
What have you got for number 5? That wasn't really my number 5, but it just felt funny saying it straight after us being serious.
I'm going to say, and I won't say the venue, but last year there was a situation.
Oh my God!
At one of the clubs that I work at, where a gentleman got, he turned up maybe at, like, say, 2:00 in the morning, dressed very smartly. He was older than me, so you do question why somebody like that would want to come in a club at 2 a.m. in the morning. Don't get me wrong, that sounds really bad. Anyone can come in a club, but
not anyone.
But yeah, so he didn't. He turned up and just went, using your toilet. Didn't say, is it okay if I pop in and use your loo? Which we would have said, yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure.
But he was very rude, and so it was like, well, no, you're not just going to talk to us like that, and then we're going to go, yeah, go and use our toilet.
Exactly.
So he was like, you can pay and come in.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that. And then, as I'm sure most of our listeners have seen or experienced over the years, lots of people like saying, do you know who I am? And then they
us in particular,
and they generally start throwing around, local bad boys' names, and it's just something that as a person that's worked on, not as a doorman, but stood on the front door of clubs, running them for
behind doorman,
definitely. I wasn't this night, bizarrely, but. I was in front of them and explaining, because he didn't seem like a problem.
Yeah.
And he really was unhappy that we wasn't prepared to just let him go and use the loo. And he said he was going to come back. And again, in that industry, in them situations, you hear that an awful lot.
Yeah.
And you generally think if they're a threat...
Yeah.
they're here right now. Why are they going to come back? If you've got something to do, then might as well do it now.
Get on with it.
But obviously we do like it when they say we'll be coming back, because 99.999% of the time they don't. They just go home, and that's obviously best for everyone.
Definitely. They've had time to cool their heels and reflect and think, it's really not worth it.
Absolutely. Fast forward half an hour, I see the gentleman walking up the road with a different top and a hood up. And I walk out, and because I kind of clock him and I think, I'm sure that's that gentleman. And then as I walk out, from his sleeve drops out an axe, and not a little axe. If you're going to go and chop a tree down with a big axe, a big two-handed axe that you see lumberjacks with, he had one of those.
Crazy man.
And then run at us and started swinging it like a crazy man, smashing the doors, and it was the obviously, you know, and I'm not trying to sound like a tough guy in the slightest, because as a licensee, as a promoter, you do not want trouble. No, it's the last thing you want. You want everybody
for your reputation.
You want
people
everybody
won't come to your club,
to have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want people thinking things like that are going to happen. And this guy had not been in our club. He was nothing to do with the night, but he just was not happy. And I questioned the mindset of someone that would do this. And yeah, but it was the fact that for so many years, I'll be back, okay, cool, and they never do. And it was the fact that it wasn't a young lad in his 20s that might have been charged up on God knows what.
Yeah.
It was someone that was older than me, that didn't look threatening.
He could swing an axe.
But didn't look threatening, didn't look like, you know, what you would perceive a stereotypical gangster type to look like.
Yeah.
He just looked like a normal bloke, and he come back swinging. And that fact that I didn't call it, that he was going to come back, and then when I see someone that seemed quite rational doing something fucking irrational, that is what made me scared. And I thought, one of us are going to die tonight. And obviously I've got a duty of care for maybe 30, 40 of our customers that are also in a smoking area.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it was a very, very odd situation. Thankfully, no one got hurt, and you know, and he was arrested, and it got handed over for the police to deal with, and it was dealt with. But in regards to me being scared, that's the first time in all the time I've been with my wife, and I've got in from work in the early hours, and I've had to wake her up and go, I have had a bad night. Yeah. In all the different clubs we've worked in, I've seen lots of awful fights and things like that. But you kind of, I'm not trying to sound like a tough guy. You kind of get a bit used to it, because in that industry, you've got lots of drink and lots of people of different backgrounds and opinions, and it's not just pubs and clubs, it's everywhere. People will argue and fight. Yeah, but you get a bit used to thinking, because you go into work mode of like, right, I need to deal with this in a way that's going to curb as much of the bad stuff that can happen. You do not want to see someone get hurt. You do not want to see someone have a bad night. You want to try and...
But
and I should say now...
the line of not being... Yeah, go on.
But, and a shout out to 99% of security that I've worked with over the years, that people are quick to say things about security when it doesn't go in their favour. But what you rarely see is somebody going on social media saying, I just want to say thanks to the security guard that, I don't know, carried my friend from there and sat with her until, she was okay. Thanks to that security guy for finding my phone and passing it back to me and ensuring that I got in a cab and got home. That's not salacious or interesting. No. But the minute they get thrown out for probably a lot of the time being a dick, and then deciding that it's security's fault, then they're quick to go on it. But So that was pure fear for me. I just thought, I can't work out this man's mindset, and it's when people are irrational and you can't talk to them, that irrational persona. When we spoke about villains and things like that in films, and I always say Begbie and people like that from Trainspotting and from Sexy Beast, you can't go,
no,
why are you doing this?
Yeah, you can't reason.
Like, because you can't reason. That makes me scared. You got number 4? Oh, 4. I forgot about AIDS.
At the time, I thought my dad was a ghost.
Okay.
So, it's nothing to laugh at, mate.
No, I'm not.
I was about 8. No, I wasn't.
My dad
I was
was sitting
younger.
behind me at a pottery reel.
I was about 6, and I wasn't very well, and I think I had a bit of a temperature. And I came out of my bedroom and sort of like started walking towards the stairs, and my dad just came round the banister of the stairs, and I hallucinated, and he just caught me off guard, and it scared the shit out of me, and I hallucinated, and he looked like a ghosty sort of monster, and he obviously wasn't. He was my dad, and it scared the living shit out of me, and I can to this day remember it. I can remember what he looked like, and it's fucking hot. It was absolutely horrible. It's such a silly, trivial thing. But when you're young and you've got an imagination, as you get older, that imagination gets less and less. And the things at dark, when you're at home at night and the doors are locked, or you hear a creak downstairs, what you're probably thinking is it might be a burglar. You know, when you're a kid, your imagination is uncapped, and so fear is so much worse. And I just remember them getting me downstairs, and my heart just absolutely thumping for like about 5-10 minutes. They couldn't calm me down, and even then, I knew that it was like a hallucination or something, or it wasn't really my dad. Well, it was just my dad. I was absolutely petrified, mate. I had to really dig deep for that one, because it's easy to forget when you're that young things that absolutely just wig you out, which was absolutely so stupid compared to what you're saying, which was a real harsh reality there of yours to mine, which sounds so trivial. But at the time, I was absolutely blown away. And did you ever, as a kid, have like your mates used to tell you ghost stories and you would just buy into them?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's so much like my friends used to say about a story of this green triangle used to float underneath one of their beds, and it just scare you.
The one
Get
from
goosebumps.
Quality Street.
What one was? It was a quality. Yeah, in the right light, it turned out it was just a Quality Street, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. Number 4, my dad being a ghost. Have you ever been scared by anything you thought was a ghostly apparition?
My next one, bizarrely, is a monster.
Okay.
And it was when the first time I really sat down and spoke to Pip. It was Dan Lassac and Scroobius Pip were playing. We co-promoted a show in Southend at the Chinneries, and then it was when Thou Shalt had just exploded, and it was a rare homecoming show for Dan and Pip. And obviously I'd known Pip loosely through all the clubs and things like that, because he'd always been at the places I'd worked at. But this was the first time that we decided we was going to work together and put this gig on. And I remember sitting down in Chinneries and thinking, I'd never seen a werewolf before, and it was the first time we shook hands, I saw his hands. And I was just like, because I'm quite hairy.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen finger hair
like that.
Yeah.
There is so much finger hair that he has to trim it.
Yeah.
That is a fair scare, mate.
Yeah. It was just, I just thought, Wolf Boy. Like, he looked like a hybrid of what's his name? Brian Blessed and Teen Wolf's dad. But all on the hands.
Yeah, all on the hands. He's got hairy feet as well. He's very hairy.
Yeah.
Really. He doesn't have a hairy lower back.
Oh, okay.
Or upper. I don't think he's got a hairy back. That's his saving
why
grace.
are you looking at his lower back?
Seen some of his sexy tattoos. I know.
So, that was a harrowing experience. The first time I realised Pip was half wolf.
Was actually a wolf boy.
Yeah.
Fair shout, mate. Fair shout. Number 3. Oh, God. I'm going to go with best man speech.
Oh, that's a good shout.
Because weirdly, like a lot of mine, it isn't normally violence doesn't scare me. So obviously because I'm hard.
Yeah.
Physical contact.
Have you got the Tube Journey on there?
This is brilliant. I knew he was going to bring that up. Yeah. At best, what I'll do in a point of conflict is just ignore it.
Yeah. Wait for it to all blow over.
Wait for it to blow over, but I won't run off. I'll just manage
Cry.
a situation and not escalate it.
Yeah.
And none of that really has ever bothered me. It really hasn't. Like other things absolutely terrify me. Girls terrify me.
Yeah.
Like talking to women is like this could have been in here. Like being a youngster, plucking up the courage to talk to a girl it was just the most absolutely daunting thing because I don't think
you hadn't worked out that you could just linger around girls' toilets at this point, had you?
No, I didn't understand that was an option.
Yeah,
I didn't understand. I thought you had to have a conversation.
Yeah, not just linger.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know linger/lurk was an option, right?
Lurk's a great word.
Chris Lurker.
Brilliant.
So I always thought women were terrifying for me. I loved them. I thought they were great. They were brilliant, funny, beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was terrified of them. Yeah. But violence has never bothered me. It really hasn't. In fact, I quite enjoy it.
John Harris, please use that as a sound clip there.
Don't say that.
Violence never bothered me. Chris Glasson. Fuck off.
Coward. Chris Glasson, yellow belly. But best man speech, fucking hell. And I've got another one coming up as well in 2 weeks. And you know what? It's like when you get asked, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And I'll say for the first one because it was harder then.
Yeah.
And then you get the fucking, like, about 3 months before the anxiety started creeping in. And then you're writing your speech. And for me, I had to learn it off by heart. I didn't want to be fucking around with notes, really. And then on the day, mate, there's nothing more really terrifying. They've done they've done the hard work. But getting married, if you fuck up your lines all right, everyone's going to laugh and think it's cute. Like, as a best man, there's an expectation.
You got to deliver, mate.
The groom's going to, say some nice things about the bride. The father of the bride's going to get up. Maybe the bride,
no one wants sentiment from you, mate. You got to make them laugh.
Got to make them laugh, and it's fucking terrifying.
It's stand up.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I read a thing that really helped me, and it's that no one wants you to fail at a best man speech. They don't. Like, people want you to get up there and make them laugh, and I did discover that. Obviously, I'm fucking hysterical, but I did feel that people wanted it to go that way.
Yeah.
And so thank God. But I even probably, I think it took me about 30 minutes after the speech to come back down to some sort of reality.
Because
and then
the thing
actually
is as well,
relax.
I've done it twice. I was my brother in Australia, so that was weird because the jokes I had were very, I know that sounds weird, very English.
Yeah.
And lots of reference points that I think had we have been in the UK and there'd be lots more people there that we'd grown up with, rather than just immediate family on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
It was a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
And one of my best pals, Speedo Steve, I was his, but when I done Steve's, I was really nervous.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what you can't do is you've got to go through all of the meal and you've got to not drink too much.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be on point to a degree, right?
Certainly.
And then you've got to sit through everyone else's speeches, and generally at some point the father of the bride's going to say something that's going to get everyone a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
And then, the groom's going to say something and it might just start sort of yanking at the heartstrings.
Yeah.
Then you've got to go up and literally just deliver a 20-minute stand-up routine. And it is intimidating.
And you've got to get it, it's not like a crowd where you know the crowd either. You've got to sort of be like, well, you do. You know some of the crowd because they're family, but you're like, oh, how far is too far?
Yeah.
Are you going to go edgy, or is it going to be just dad jokes all the time? And if you go too safe, people probably won't laugh that much, or it'll be polite laughter, and who wants to, oh, well done, oh, that was funny.
Yeah.
So, it's fucking terrifying, man.
Yeah, it is. That's a great shout. It's
number 3.
Brilliant.
What's yours, mate?
It's a public speech again. And a really weird thing happened years ago. Not years ago, probably 4 years ago, the Six Music DJ Chris Hawkins come to DJ at Queen Hoxton for me.
Yeah.
I got on really well with him, and he's got this. He was involved in this kind of committee of people in the nightclub industry.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
And I got invited to the House of Lords to talk, or to be part of a talk, and so I was like, I'm not passing up at the opportunity to go here. This could be quite interesting. So off I went and checked into the kind of airport style security to get in there, and it was amazing.
Like, you have a screwdriver in your bag,
and like, but it was just like this, you know. Why on earth am I here? Yeah. You know, not that necessarily that place is full of fucking people that I aspire to be like.
Yeah.
But Chris is a proper nice dude.
Yeah.
And when I got there, my friend Dan was there, who owns the Propaganda nightclubs, the club brand. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. And then there was lots of other sort of venue owners and concert promoters, and I was like, wow. I mean, you know, the company here of people that I've respected and kind of grown up aspiring to be. And so I got a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in like a kind of a horseshoe shaped sort of seating arrangement, you know, in Parliament. And I was like, how am I here? And the whole thing got to me. And you know, like when we do live shows and things like that, I'm not that uncomfortable with things like that, and doing the bands for years of being the front man, I generally feel quite comfortable gobbing off. But I was counting down the talks as they were coming round to me. You know, when you do like the kind of the network thing or the team building thing where you all have to go, hi, my name's Stuart, I'm a marketing manager and I like playing badminton and my favourite band's Duran Duran. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and you know when everyone's doing that with their little sticker on with their name on, it's you still get that pang of anxiety when it's your turn in case
because you're rehearsing what you're going to say.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, and as it was getting round, more and more people were saying things that I was going to say. So my kind of little bit that I wanted to chirp up with was getting trimmed and trimmed and trimmed. So it was adding to the kind of concern that I might have to ad-lib.
Yeah.
And I hadn't prepped for it. And terrifying. I was around people that, like I said earlier, like I'd kind of grown up really admiring. And so, and I was absolutely terrified by the time it got to me to speak. And I spoke, and I think I got away with it, but I didn't
laugh at your lisp, or
no, not that I can recall. I think they all slagged me off about it when I left. But yeah, and it was really terrifying because it felt like everybody that was saying stuff had things to say that was far more important, intellectual, than what I was going to say, which was generally my life. But yeah, that was a different sort of nerves, and it got the better of me, and thankfully I managed to just about get away with it.
Yeah. Well, mate, you've got a lot to say for that because you have had a very long running experience as a nightclub promoter. So I'm sure that probably made it even more important for you. But also, I'm sure you contributed well, mate.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, and it was a crazy experience, and I think the whole enormity of it got me terrified.
What was it for? Why were you all there at the House of Lords? What was the actual purpose?
It was something about the changes in the nightclub industry. I can't really remember now, and just how nightlife and live venues were dying a death, and it was a case of like sort of putting forward something that the government should have to listen to, that it is a vital part of our culture, that these spaces exist for bands to perform in and for creative people to have a space to be able to grow their talent and also in club culture it's a massive part of people's lives and growing up and their rite of passage, and that's where you go and find really develop, I think, a lot of who you are. It's where you find the clubs where you're
definitely
you can surround yourself with like-minded people.
Definitely music culture.
Absolutely. Next one, mate.
Number 2 would be the dog attack.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it, and then Molly went, what about the dog attack? And then I just started breaking out into a sweat and crying in the corner of the room, and it really was fucking awful, that. And I think for
the attack or the fox shit.
We won't go back over the fox shit story, but for people who you probably have all listened to that and heard that story now of showing up at a vet's covered in fog shit with a dog bleeding in my arms. But yeah, that was absolutely fucking brutal. As an adult, we go from like the dad being a ghost to a very real situation that escalated out of fucking something that was completely innocuous, which is taking a dog for a walk, and then within seconds of normality and having a great time, thinking you're doing a good thing by taking your mate's dog for a walk, is your mate's dog having a staff with its fucking jaws around your mate's dog's throat, and your mate's dog's throat squealing its death throes while you try and beat a staff off of it. And I did beat that staff off of it. It was brutal. I didn't get many injuries. I think I sort of half popped up one of my fingers out of a socket and got a few small bites, but they were only from trying to prise its fucking teeth off of Fred's throat. But when I was there and I was on the floor with a staff, and weirdly, I don't know if I'd do the same thing. I didn't think about what I was doing when I did it. And I didn't realise how dangerous the situation was. And if that staff would have changed its mind and come for me, that could have been brutal. And I genuinely don't know that if I'd have been given any time to do that, although I say I'm not bothered about violence, there's a difference between bothering about violence, conflicts between men, and a wild, vicious animal.
This is an important thing we need to discuss here, because it will be definitely relevant in my next ones. And it's dealing with an emergency, dealing with a situation, and how you can keep your mind focused on, rather than just panicking, which a lot of people do. And I'm not saying I've not panicked in situations, but I think sometimes you learn to be able to think, right, stay focused here and deal with a situation. And I think that's important. And what you've done there, I know I've ripped the piss out of you a lot of times before, but to literally stick your hands in a staff's gob when that staff's lost its shit, that's not fucking fun, man.
No, it weren't. And
and also the harrowing screams of a dog being like having its throat bit.
Yeah,
that's things like that. Most people would just fucking scream and not know how to deal with that. And to get stuck in without thinking, he's brilliant.
I appreciate that, mate. It was horrible. Like I remember like being on the floor, and because I first started to try and punch it, and the staff's just muscle. It doesn't feel punches. And I'm not a particularly hard puncher in all fairness anyway, but but I was there wrestling around on the floor thinking my mate's dog is getting fucking murdered here.
Yeah.
And then there's blood all over the shop, and you hear this dog like never make any. Fred is like a silent dog. He fucking never barks, and oh my god, the sound of him doing that was harrowing. And you've got the other owner's dog screaming at this dog's name, Brooklyn. Fucking, do you know what? How chavvy can you be having a staff and naming it? But I'm a real geezer, me. Look at my tough old doggy. It's like, you're not Brad Pickett tough, mate. Who's got the fucking, who's got like the nicest.
Walking through Shoreditch last week, I see this little dog come round the corner on Old Street. Yeah. Then I saw this little fella with a nose that looked like he'd been hit a lot, and then I heard, "All right, mate," and it was Brad.
No way.
And he come over, got this big cuddle, and he was like, "How you boys been?" Blah blah blah. And he asked how the podcast was going, and he had his lovely little dog with him.
Oh, that's amazing, mate.
Yeah, that's a scary man.
That's a tough,
but a lovely man.
Exactly, you know. So the dog attack, mate. Yeah, it was harrowing, and I weren't right. And I'm cool with all dogs now, but even the first 6 months after that, bigger dogs, I was much more wary around because I knew what they were capable of. And even now, even with staffs, I'm not saying I act weird about them. I'll stroke them and that, but in the back of my head, I saw something that was fucking terrifying. That
I know we've spoke about this and dogs and muzzles and things like that, so we won't go back over it again. But when dogs do get to a size where it's difficult for a human to control them, should they flip? And I'm not saying that's just staff. That could be any dogs that are of a size where it's difficult for a human to control them in them situations. Yeah. I think the fact that, I know you got loads of people to say it's the owner, not the dog, and there's a lot to be said for that too.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
But for you to experience that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you feeling uncomfortable around a breed of dog that you experienced do something like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. And I'm not saying all staffs do that, but it's definitely, it leaves you with something. Like life always does. There's reasons why we have fear and memory and we get these hang-ups, because it's your ego trying to say, look, you experienced that and it was terrible. Why are you going back there? You know, dog attack, matey. So what's your number 2, man?
It's a situation where I'm not going to talk about the geezer in Mexico that was choking and had the reaction.
Oh yeah, he saved his life.
Yeah, but there was a situation which happened to me when I was probably about 20. I might have been 19, 20, and I had a girlfriend at the time that lived in Billericay, Sarah, I'll shout her out, and I was driving over to drop her home after going out one night, driving through Billericay, and the car in front of me was just driving along, and a car come out from the side and T-boned it. And literally just smashed into this car and then drove off. And this car was in a state. Thankfully, it hit passenger side, not driver's side. So I've got out, obviously, and gone over there, and she was unconscious in her car.
Fucking hell.
And the bonnet of her car had small little circles of flames.
Oh, my God.
And so obviously you think, do not move this person. Have they broke their neck? Have they broke their back?
Yeah.
And it was that, if this car's going to catch fire, I think I better get her out of this car.
Yeah.
So I was talking to her, the airbag had gone off, and she was in and out of consciousness, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to make a decision. And I don't even think mobile phones were a thing then, so I don't think we could have just phoned an ambulance and whatever. But and it was down a pretty isolated road, but someone definitely called an ambulance because it arrived quite quickly. But I just thought, I've got to pull her out of this car.
Fucking hell. So
I was talking to her, telling her that I was going to do that, and I was trying to find out, can you feel your legs? Can you feel, what, And she was, like I say, in and out of conscious, but was communicating.
Oh, God.
So I just thought, right, I'm going to lift her out the car, which I did, and put her on the side of her. Thankfully, she hadn't broke her neck or back or anything like that. And then the emergency services arrived, and and
mate,
it was
really brave.
But the car, I'm making that sound a bit more dramatic. Like, the car didn't catch fire.
No, but the thing is, right, even if you see a couple of flames, like for example, I think in Hollywood, the reason why they get to the point where there's all these multiple explosions, they're trying to make you feel like how it would feel if you saw one little flame licking under a bonnet.
But then just seeing it like that smoke and
Exactly.
made me think, this car's gonna blow, because I've been brought up watching films where these cars blow.
Yeah, exactly.
Chances are it was never going to happen.
No.
But at the time, I was young, and I just thought,
no more difference. The illusion was reality for you right then.
And I just thought, fuck. And I hadn't really, obviously doing, since then, I've, done lots of the first aid courses and dealt with lots of fucking shitty situations in that industry. But then I had no real kind of practice of trying to remain calm in a situation. No. But I just thought, fuck, better get her out of here. And that was it. But I do remember thinking that horror of hearing a car crash, because the noise is like something you've never heard, and it's so loud, and it just literally, my whole stomach just contracted in that horrible fear.
Yeah.
And then got out, and just that being so petrified of what you might see when you get to that car door.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Of course, yeah.
you know, she was all right. But and then seeing that, and it was like there was lots of things that were making me really scared, and I just thought I'll just get her out of the car just in case. And then she was fine. But yeah, I was really scared.
I
Like,
bet you fucking was, man.
Like,
Because it's really weird.
and you know what a dick you are at 20 years of age. I know what a fucking helmet I was at 20.
Yeah, I was all right. I got worse. No, I'm lying. How can I even try that? Yeah, no, it's horrible. But it is that weirdness that a lot of these scary moments. Obviously, the ghost dad, where my heart was racing and that, and there's a few other instances I could tell where I was really panicking. But the worst one, again, is one where the reality of what was happening meant that despite me fucking bricking it, was like, I've got to just do this.
Yeah.
I've just got to do this. There was absolutely, there wasn't really another option.
But there is.
Die.
And do you know what? I've had this conversation with my mate Nick, who does the Man for Manliness podcast with Brad. And we've had a few situations where he said things that have ended up causing a situation.
Yeah.
And I've helped him in that situation.
Yeah.
He's caused a fight.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've ended up trying to stick up for my mate.
I remember this, yeah.
And he's literally run off.
Yeah.
And his argument is, I just got scared.
Yeah.
And that's not the easiest thing to admit to.
No, it isn't.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, at the time, I was being kicked around the floor and I didn't give a fuck about how scared he was.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But he was just...
As you get older and mature, you sort of...
But he was like,
yeah.
I just got scared. I can't help it.
Mm.
I just was scared. And it was like, oh yeah. Like, so, you know, when these situations do happen and sometimes you just think, right, fucking, I've got to do the right thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes people do just get scared.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
like, you know, fear, look, this whole thing is based around things that make you scared. And sometimes when that fear happens, sometimes people freeze, sometimes people, that instant reaction to run is probably the normal response, right? And I'm not saying that we're superheroes for not running.
No.
Because I say that probably a massive percentage of people would also just think, got to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like, but some people do panic. And panic's a fucking strange thing.
It is, and you might panic, like I say, with that dog attack. The next time, that might be a completely different version. Like, you can I think sometimes you can be in a different mindset and you can react to things brave or in more cowardice. And so I think it is that. I think it's quite... it's transient. It happens. You come in and out of it sometimes. There might be some things you're flat out always going to stand up for.
Yeah.
And there might be scenarios where you bottle it or don't. Do you know what I mean? So my number one is snowboarding, being a rad dude. And there's a few that I could have said about. Like one time we went down the wrong side of the mountain and the lifts all finished, and me and a buddy were just in this almost deserted village as the sun was coming down in, like, you know, freezing temperatures. And
Take all your clothes off and hold each other.
That's
Body warmth.
That's what we did. But that all got settled, so it was only very brief. Think of, fuck, we could be in trouble here. Or the first time I got
keep warm, wrestle him like a dog.
That's it. We got caught in. I've been caught in a lot of whiteouts, and they are scary. It's like being, you know, those scenes in heaven.
Is that a right-wing group?
Yeah. You know those scenes in movies when they're in heaven and everything's white.
Yeah.
Whiteouts are that. Yeah, but you can't even see your legs. It's that
so
crazy.
So zero perspective on anything.
You can't see anything, and you're on a fucking snowboard. And the first time that happened, I went off the side of a mountain. But it was like, I might make it sound like it was like. Don't picture a mountain. I went off the side of about a 30-foot drop.
Right.
And luckily caught the side and was hanging on the edge of it. That was rather scary. But the time I want to talk about is we sometimes do off-piste. We like doing off-piste stuff, but we're not idiots. We really do. Like, we try to be careful with when it happens, right?
Never let it be said you're an idiot.
No, exactly. Thank you. And we always
went off a cliff.
Yeah, but
right.
in a whiteout.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And basically, we always plot our routes, and we always try and see everything we can on an off-piste part, so that we're not going to go over. We're not going to go over something, and then there'd be a crevasse there that we can't deal with.
That'd be idiotic.
Right. So anyway, one time, I'm with Mark and my mate Andy. There's about 8 of us, and a couple of them are skiers, and a couple of them are snowboarders. And basically, Mark goes, right, we're all going down here. And a couple of the skiers had gone off. And how you ski and snowboard is distinctly different in certain situations, right? What you can do on skis, sometimes you can't do on a snowboard. So things on skis would be easy than on skateboards and snowboards and vice versa. And Mark went, oh, they've gone down here. And I went, okay, that's off-piste. I said, have you been down that route before, Mark? Is it safe? And Mark went, yes. I said, okay, that's good enough, right? Anyway, we set off, and for some reason, I'm last to go. And usually, when you're snowboarding, you should go in the level of how experienced you are, because on a snowboard, if someone stacks it and you're behind them, you're going to end up stacking it too, potentially, right?
Right.
And anyway, Mark and a few others go, and then Andy goes before me. And Andy's experience on a snowboard at that point wasn't brilliant. And it was good, but it wasn't to the standard that was going to be required for what it turned out to be, right? And anyway, this thing becomes narrower and narrower, and it becomes like, as these two, like the rocky outcrops meet like this, you can snowboard between them, and it was really fun. You're going up and down them, but it's off-piste, it gets more dangerous. And then all of a sudden it splits, and there's a crevasse, and there's a river, and the river then goes just underground. And you're looking at it going, that's probably death. It's possibly death from the fall, and then the current was strong enough to be pulling you under there, and I just don't see how anyone's getting you out of that before you get hypothermia or more than likely die. And anyway, all of a sudden you get this crevasse, and then the path goes fucking super narrow and at this weird angle like that. And on a snowboard, you need to keep momentum going downwards. And if there's a sideward momentum, it can easily push you into a direction that you can't stop, right? Depending on the gradient. Yeah. You're just going that way, it's the end of it. Unless you can dig your snowboard in and keep close to the ground, or indeed take your board off. Anyway, Andy commits to it, because you have to commit to it. And even before that point, it didn't look as dangerous as it was. I followed him. I go around the corner, and Andy has not been able to maintain his board, and he stacked it, and he's fucking hanging off a tree over the edge of a crevasse, basically. But there's nothing I can do. I can either continue.
Natural selection, leave him.
Well, yeah, it's that.
Cut the rope.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do I do that, or is it like you just can't, you know? And again, part of this is stupidity. He's my oldest friend. Doesn't mean I like him. It's just the person I've known the longest.
Did you feel duty bound then?
Kinda. I was like. So anyway, I slowed down, which immediately was a dumb thing to do, because it meant that I had pot committed to getting involved in this. The minute I slowed down was like, I'm going to now not have the momentum on the ball to traverse this safely.
It's a bit like Speed with Keanu Reeves.
It was really like Speed.
Yeah. If you slow down, you might die.
I might die. That really is what it's like on snowboard sometimes.
Jesus, you're so rad.
I really am rad, aren't I? And basically, I managed to stop by like this tree trunk, and all these trees are coming out, and they're all there's lots of drops basically, and I managed to park up by this tree thing, take my snowboard off.
Sorry, park up.
Oh
right, okay.
Put my snowboard down.
Obviously, a strange time to get
aroused. Yeah, sometimes. But actually, I used it almost like as I poked that in the snow.
Pivot,
it was like a brake.
Yeah.
Really, a horse's handbrake. Thank you. And basically, I had to slide down part of this thing, then hold on to a tree branch, and let down and let my foot go down so Andy could hold on to my leg to pull himself up my leg to then get hold of a branch for us to then be secure enough to pull ourselves up, him take his snowboard off, and us to crawl really carefully between branch to branch out of this crevasse. And
That's
it was
heavy.
Fucking horrible. And like, when I was doing it, I was looking down and I was just thinking, this is not the one. This could be death here. It's worse than the dog attack. The dog attack was way more violent and visceral, and the screams and that was dead silent. All you could hear was of the river, and me just thinking, absolute concentrate here. There's no time for wanking.
Yeah.
Just got to get it done, and it was brutal, mate. It
Yeah.
was a horror. I came out, and Mark nearly got a punch. When we came out of the gap, Mark nearly got one landed on him, basically, because I was fucking furious that he said he'd been down there, and I was like, "Have you been down here?" He went, "No, Ryan's been down there." And as I said, skiers. And Ryan was a high level skier. The difference between Ryan at that stage and Andy and myself, it was different,
Yeah.
And Mark hadn't been down there.
It's one of the pitfalls of being too rad.
Being a rad dude, bro.
Yeah.
That was it, man. That was it. Don't be too rad. Top that. What was you doing? Fucking surfing on a Velociraptor or something like that? Or?
No. The thing that scares me most was last year. I had a moment at the beginning of last year where I got a bit complacent, and that scares me.
Yeah.
Being complacent.
Yeah.
Because I took a job doing something I didn't want to do, and I was still obviously doing the clubs and the podcast, but I had a 9 to 5, which I'd never had in my life.
Yeah.
And I'd done it because money.
Yeah.
But I found myself in a situation where I wasn't in control of it.
Yeah.
Someone was my boss.
Yeah.
And I was surrounded by people that I wouldn't generally find myself working with, because in the fields that I work in, whether it's podcasting or clubs or music, generally you've got people where you've got shared interests.
You're a rad dude, basically.
And I'm not rad, but I can talk to you about music, films, creating stuff, and and it's lovely, because you want to be able to enjoy the things you do. And I know that I'm lucky that that you can work in areas that you enjoy, but I wasn't there, and I was doing something that I didn't want to do for money, and it's the first time I'd done that. And then I found myself having conversations with people that I just thought, and I don't think I'm better than these people, but I just want something different to these people.
Exactly.
And I just found myself giving an inch of myself.
So you gave everything you had.
I think I went right up to the nuts. But no, I just found myself like doing something I wasn't happy doing, when I know that I'd rather throw myself into doing something that I do want to do, and
where there's more risk.
And I don't mean I want risk, because no one wants risk. People want that. I mean, there's nothing. What is good about going to work at 9 to 5 is that money's in the bank at the end of the month, and that's lovely, and that does give you a certain peace of mind. But I don't want to sound like a wanker, but it just weren't for me. Like the field of work I was working in, which was basically construction, it's just not my bag. I'm not interested in it, and I'm not interested in I couldn't deal with it, and I just thought, and I was having arguments with myself saying, just fucking quit, and and Carol was like, just quit, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll just do something else.
How nice is that?
And it's amazing to have that, because I couldn't. I was just thinking, because having a house and kids, you've got a weight of responsibility, and it was like, and it was just something that petrified me. Just thinking, have I just now got to do the podcast on a Monday night with Chris and maybe do a bit of DJing, but I've got to bite the bullet and do this job I don't want to do for the rest of my life, and have conversations where I ask someone what they're doing at the weekend, and he's like, I'm going to make a pasta bake.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And I just think, I'm not better than that.
Can I hear more about the pasta bake, please? Sorry, what?
But you know what, right? That was the conversation where I was like, I want to hand him my notice in. And and I didn't particularly like this person either, to be honest. He wasn't very nice. But his idea of a good weekend was the fact that he was going to have a pasta bake, and I just thought, I don't want to become someone that has a weekend of time down from work, and all I'm doing is looking forward to a pasta bake. I know I'm getting old, but I've got too many things I want to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm out. I've got to fucking quit. And I just was like, here's my notice, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, and so, yeah, just the thought of resigning myself to something just to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that, you know, huge percentage of people are in a job that they don't particularly enjoy, and I'm not hating on that at all. And I'm, you know, you got to
do you. If you are capable of doing it. To be fair, I'm doing contract work at the
Yeah.
moment, and the last contract and this one, I don't hate.
Yeah.
I'm not hating it.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, the people I'm working with, I'm having quite a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
And I'm quite a sociable person, so to be in contact with like 50 people a day working is really healthy for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I'm not
I know
hating on any of this.
Exactly, but that's the point. Is that it isn't hating on that. It's knowing you've got to be honest with yourself in life, and you've got to not live up to other people's expectations of what life is. And
Otherwise, you won't be happy.
no, exactly.
Like, and so yeah, I think I'd rather earn less and have a few more sleepless nights worrying about is this going to work. And in fairness, big props to Scroob, because Pod Bible was a thing that came in at that point that was like, right, I can really focus on this as well. And yeah, so yeah, me just getting complacent and settling for something that perhaps isn't me. So yeah, that's the thing that scares me the most.
So mine is hanging off the edge of a cliff, rescuing a mate.
Yeah.
And yours is
Don't
complacency.
really like my job.
Wanker.